The Wild West is often pictured as a lawless land ruled by rugged cowboys armed to the teeth. Hollywood has burned this image into our minds, but what if most of it is pure myth? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the real American frontier. What if everything you thought you knew was only half true? Let's start with the iconic cowboy. Contrary to popular belief, most cowboys weren't outlaws or quick-draw gunslingers. They were hard-working laborers, managing cattle, facing dust and exhaustion, not adventure. The job was brutally tough and rarely glamorous. The famous cowboy hat wasn't actually the symbol of the West at first. Early cowboys often wore bowler hats or even leftover military caps. The wide-brimmed Stetson only became popular much later. Hollywood made it iconic, but cowhens dressed mostly for practicality. Did you think the West was constantly echoing with gunfires? According to historical records, gunfights were extremely rare. Most towns had strict laws against carrying firearms within city limits. Wyatt Earp himself enforced these laws as a lawman. The myth of the lone cowboy hero is all wrong. Cowboys usually worked in large, organized crews. Their days were filled with teamwork, not solo adventures. In reality, being alone on the range was dangerous, not heroic. Saloon brawls and epic bar fights. These two are mostly fiction. Towns had local sheriffs and ordinances to keep the peace. People could be fined or jailed for drunken behavior. The real Wild West was surprisingly diverse. Black, Mexican, Native American, and Chinese cowboys made up a huge part of the workforce. Over a quarter of all cowboys were Black or Latino, but Hollywood almost always showed only white faces. Many cowboys couldn't ride off into the sunset with endless freedom. The work was often seasonal, poorly paid, and posed more risks than rewards. Injuries and illnesses were common on the trail. Job security was non-existent. Settlers also faced myth versus reality. They weren't just brave pioneers venturing into empty wilderness. The Western lands were home to Native American nations for centuries. Settlement meant conflict, negotiation, and sometimes forced displacement. The Indian attacks, so dramatized in movies, extremely exaggerated. Disease, weather, and hunger were much deadlier for settlers. Most frontier violence wasn't between settlers and natives, it was within the settler communities themselves. Let's bust the myth about the always violent West. Justice could be harsh, but towns relied on regular law and order. Many communities had courts, schools, and churches quickly after forming. Life was more about survival and community than wild shootouts. Gold rush greed wasn't a daily theme for most. Actual gold strikes were rare and fleeting. Most fortunes were made by those selling supplies, like Levi Strauss, whose denim jeans outlasted any gold claim. Prospecting was risky, dirty, and mostly fruitless. The Wild West didn't last long. The classic era of the cowboy spanned about 20 to 30 years, ending by the 1890s. Railroads, telegraphs, and barbed wire fences quickly tamed the frontier. The Old West faded into nostalgia almost as soon as it began. Cowboy diets were another myth. Forget steak and beans every night. They mainly ate biscuits, bacon, coffee, and whatever was available. Meals were monotonous, often barely enough. Food was carried in saddlebags and cooked over open fires. Women played a bigger role than Hollywood admits. Pioneer women ran farms, ranched cattle, and managed businesses. Many acted as doctors, teachers, and peacekeepers. Strong and resourceful, women were frontier survivors, not just damsels in distress. Saloons weren't everywhere either. Many settlements banned alcohol entirely or strictly regulated it. Saloons catered to a small, mostly male clientele. Family life, not constant drinking, was the central social pillar for many. The six-shooter didn't win the West alone. Shotguns, rifles, and even bows were common weapons. Many pioneers never owned a gun. Firearms were tools, not personality traits. Towns didn't spring up overnight fully formed. Many started as tent encampments, grew into wooden shacks, and only slowly built infrastructure. Fire and disease were regular dangers. City slickers looking for adventure often found hard labor instead. Dueling in the street was never a daily reality. The high noon showdown is almost entirely a legend. Most disputes were settled in courts or by negotiation. Dueling was risky, a surefire way to be arrested or killed. Horses weren't cheap or everywhere. Many cowboys actually walked long distances or rode mules. Horses were valuable property, often more expensive than a man's salary. Horse theft was a major crime and punished harshly. Lawmen didn't always wear shiny badges. Many were volunteers or served temporarily. Corruption was common, and many lawmen had checkered pasts. The image of a flawless sheriff? That's pure movie magic. Native Americans were far from helpless victims. Many tribes fiercely protected their land, traditions, and people. Some fought, some traded, and some adapted rapidly to new realities. Their stories, however, never made it to Hollywood. Most settlers weren't rugged individualists. Homesteading required massive cooperation. Neighbors built houses, barns, and communities together. Isolation led to danger and failure. Success depended on helping and trusting others. The cowboys' most important skill was not gunplay, but handling cattle. Roping, branding, and herding took years to master. A single stampede could wipe out fortunes. If you couldn't ride and work as a team, you didn't last. The image of endless, wide-open spaces is also misleading. Fences, land claims, and new towns quickly carved up the prairies. Open range vanished within a generation. By the early 20th century, the wild frontier was mostly gone. Outlaws were fewer and often less glamorous than legend says. Bank robbers and infamous gunmen were exceptions, not the rule. Most bad men ended up dead or in jail. Their fame grew only in dime novels and later in Hollywood. Buffalo hunts weren't just sport, they were devastating. The near extermination of buffalo destroyed native livelihoods and forever changed the plains. Hunters were often hired to kill as many animals as possible. The devastation happened shockingly fast. Rodeos began as real contests between working cowboys, not stage shows. Competitions in roping and riding proved who was the best on a ranch. Modern rodeos turned those skills into entertainment, often losing the connection to true ranch work. Buildings weren't all wooden Wild West falls fronts. Adobe, stone, and sod were used in many places, depending on climate and resources. Settlers made do with whatever materials were at hand. The look of the West depended on where you actually were. Myths about the West are powerful for a reason. They gave people hope, adventure, and an escape from the hard realities of frontier life. But the truth is just as fascinating as the legend, maybe even more so. In the real Wild West, resilience, diversity, and cooperation were the keys to survival. Next time you picture a cowboy, outlaw, or pioneer, remember, the real stories are even more complex and interesting. Why did the Hollywood myth become so strong? Because it's simple and we all love a good story. But the past deserves to be seen clearly. So what other myths about the Wild West surprise you? Would you have survived on the real frontier? The real American West was a place of grit, not just glamour. Let's keep debunking the legends, one story at a time.